Hey ladies and gentlemen, Adrian here for Digital Dojos, and today we're going to be talking about the iMac Pro and if it's overpriced. So at Apple's WWDC, one of the big announcements was that of the new iMac Pro. All new hardware, a sleek matte black, or not matte black, by space gray I should say, gray color is going to be coming to the iMac, and while it looks the same at the surface, it's very, very different internally. The iMac Pro is going to be a very, specific machine for a specific user. And that's why I wanted to address the question is if it's overpriced, because a lot of people are talking about the price point, not necessarily if it's worth it, because that's a very subjective standpoint. And furthermore, it's not even out yet, and a lot of the hardware that's in it isn't even officially out. This isn't going to be out to December, so it would be unfair to say. However, just from a price to part comparison, let's kind of break it down. So the iMac Pro, who's it for first off? This is Apple's response to the prosumer community. They really dropped the ball with the Mac Pro, and there is a statement released that they are still going to be introducing a new Mac Pro. However, to kind of respond to the prosumer community, Apple has showed that with the iMac Pro, they haven't forgotten about the people who need heavy resources and apps that they use, like whether it's Final Cut or Premiere or so on and so forth. And they do higher level things like higher level video editing, 3D rendering, higher level graphic design or machine learning, and now even VR development, who need that extra system resource and power in a Mac. And in this case, an all-in-one desktop, the iMac Pro, is going to be offering things like an 8, 10, or 18-core Xeon processor. So a lot of horsepower is built behind the internals of this iMac, not to mention it has that beautiful 5K screen in it, of course, all encompassed in this all-in-one design, no tower, Radeon Vega graphics, which is all new, top of the line from AMD. That's not even officially out yet. This is a very tailored machine. It isn't for the everyday consumer. It isn't for a family computer. The iMac, for the most part, will suit a lot of those users fine. Even arguably power users can get a top of the line spec iMac and be fine with that, doing a lot of tasks. However, the iMac Pro, if you really do need that extra power and are willing to pay for it, may be for you. But again, that 5K price point is the baseline. And baseline, we're talking about a 27-inch iMac Pro, 5K display, 8-core Xeon CPU, 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM, a terabyte PCIe SSD, not ID, AMD Radeon Pro Vega 56 GPU with, I believe, 8 gigs of VRAM. And then we're talking about new things to the Mac like 10 gigabit Ethernet. This is going to have 4 USB-C ports as well as 4 USB 3.0 ports. So for the first time in a Pro Mac, they're not just limiting you just to USB-C. They're giving you old and new I/O. And then again, it just is clearly, really great designed iMac, all in one. They say it's better cooling, even though that they have all this new hardware in it. So you have a lot of functionality. You have the SD card reader, you have those USB ports, so on and so forth. Now, that being said, $5,000. I want to do a quick comparison to that of a PC workstation, just to give you an idea here. I spec'd this ThinkStation P910 from Lenovo out. This is one of their top-of-the-line workstations. Very similar, but not obviously exactly one-to-one. We're talking about something that runs Windows here. We're talking about hardware that isn't even out yet in the iMac Pro, so it's not a true one-to-one comparison, but as far as basic specs, 32 gigs of RAM, a Xeon processor. In this case, we went with an NVIDIA Quadro M500. About terabytes, so 2 512 gig PCIe SSDs, and I believe we also went with, in this configuration, where is it here? If I lost it, so yeah, the 2 SSDs and an extra terabyte hard drive is an option here. Let's turn that off, so because we don't need that one. Or I guess technically that would be the Fusion drive, because now Apple has that Fusion drive. So let's go with just a 1 terabyte solid state drive, and we'll take off this SSD here, this PCIe SSD. So yeah, you can already see roughly, that's the terabyte solid state drive, not the PCIe drive, but roughly we're still talking about 4,400, 4,500, give or take, in terms of specs. And on top of that, this Lenovo workstation doesn't even include the 5K display, so you'd have to get that, and that's clearly already over the $5,000 entry-level price point for the iMac Pro. Now, obviously, this is just one workstation configuration. PC Gamer actually did a comparison where they took just all custom parts from PC Part Picker and again, similar but not one-to-one to the iMac Pro, and they were able to come out right around $4,687. I'll link this article down below, with a LG Ultrafine 5K display. So they were able to get a display in there. However, as they noted, at about $4,700, $300 isn't a huge difference between that and the iMac Pro. I mean, $300 isn't going to make or break you if you're already spending $4,000 plus on a workstation machine. And again, like I mentioned, this isn't geared towards the everyday consumer. This is geared towards more the enterprise solution, more towards the professional, market out there. In my personal experience, of course, people are making the arguments for professionals and in the enterprise. You want something more modular. You want something upgradable. In my personal experience with the enterprise world, working in a startup in San Francisco, I've seen that most people typically lease their computers, and they don't typically go the route of just like upgrading a CPU or GPU, rather just cycling the computers as the lease goes up. But that's just my own personal experience. It could be very different in other places. So in that case, is the iMac Pro overpriced? I'm actually going to say no. I think it's priced fair for what it is. Everything it includes. You keep in mind that you can run Windows and Mac OS on the iMac Pro, whereas you can't run Mac OS on a custom-built You can, but you have to go through a lot of loopholes to set up a Hackintosh and get the proper hardware. But in terms of easy use, buying something right out of the box, I think $5,000 is a fair price point. I don't think everybody should go out there and buy it. I don't think it's worth it for everybody, obviously. It's a very specific machine for, very specific users, and I think that's the best way to kind of put it. I do think it's a gorgeous machine. I think the Space Gray looks awesome across the iMac Pro and the accessories, and it's a machine that I'm actually personally excited about. I've always enjoyed the iMac form factor. I never minded to have more power when it comes to work and stuff like that, and I think the price point, in my opinion, is generally, in terms of the market, in a good spot. But that's just me. Love to hear your thoughts. Leave them down in the comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribed, and of course, check out more content over at digitaldojos.com. Thanks for watching.